some of our Unite for Her. Thank you. Hopefully we'll have our community hopping on and streaming live on Facebook. Happy Saturday. My name is Erin Pellegrin. So for those on our Facebook stream that may not be familiar, I'm our Director of Culinary Nutrition and Education. I am a lover of food and all things cooking, and I'm excited to be dancing around in the kitchen. So for those that are joining me on Zoom, if anyone is cooking along, like I said, let me know. You're welcome to always hop on and cook along with me for 1, 2, or 3 of our recipes. And I will be sure to check in with you during class. I have my esteemed co-host Rachel with me today. So if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat in Zoom. Any questions about food, ingredients, preparation, substitutions, we welcome. Also on Facebook, feel free to share your questions if you're watching live. We've got some great recipes for today. So my theme for my March and April cooking classes, I am calling sheet pans and soba noodles. And I feel like I'm just riding the quick weeknight train throughout 2024. And that is what these recipes are this morning. So 2 of my dishes will be made entirely on a sheet pan. One will be a soup, so we will be using a blender. The other will be a fish dish, and I'll be using salmon today, but you could use any kind of fish fillet. We'll talk about that when we get there. And then we'll be making a really wonderful quick side dish using frozen vegetables, which I love. It's a really great way to save on a food budget, to minimize food waste. So keeping frozen veggies stocked in your refrigerator, freezer, is a great backup plan. So we'll be using frozen veggies, and this pairs well. Oh, Marta. Well, as I was saying, it is a rainy, dreary day here in Philadelphia in the Eastern PA, and I'm sure a lot of the surrounding areas. So this is the day that I enjoy cooking because I don't feel like I need to be outside enjoying the sunshine. So to me, this makes me pumped to cook. So this will be really great. So with that being said, we like to start our cooking classes with a food for thought moment. So this moment is where we pull out one of the ingredients that we're using and highlight the nutritional benefit. And of course, we want to give a big thanks to our sponsor, Merck. They are a wonderful supporter of our entire digital platform, and really a promoter of nutrition education in general and overall education in the oncology space. So we are happy that they are a supporter. And my food for thought moment for today is this beautiful little spice, cumin. And there is a lot to know about cumin, aside from the fact that it is delicious and it adds really great flavor to dishes. So cumin is a member of the parsley family. And the spicy seeds, if you ever see cumin seeds, they have a gray color, they're an oblong shape, and cumin originated in the Eastern Mediterranean to South Asia regions of the world, although now it's used worldwide in lots of different ways. So cumin, what I think a lot of our members know is it's also widely used in Ayurvedic medicine. So some of the potential health benefits that come along with cumin include support of digestive issues, things like indigestion or bloating or nausea, morning sickness. So it could potentially be helpful for that. There is a compound in cumin called thymol, which is thought to stimulate the glands that produce digestive enzymes, acids, and bile. So it can be good for digestion. And then it overall helps with constipation and supporting a healthy bowel regimen. So really looking at that overall digestive support that cumin is thought to provide when we are incorporating it into our day-to-day. Some really interesting tips in my research about cumin that I thought was really great. In ancient Egypt, cumin was used as part of the process of preserving mummies. And historically at weddings, guests would keep cumin seeds in their pockets as a sign of love and fidelity. So so much more, like I said, than just a spice. And cumin comes in lots of different forms. So of course you have the cumin seeds. They can be enjoyed in their whole seed form or in a ground form, which is how I will be using them today. And if you're using the seeds, typically they're roasted and then they are ground down into that powder form. And that's the spice that we know and use most frequently. Now, it typically comes in 3 different forms in terms of health benefits. So again, we have the ground cumin that can be enjoyed. There's also bitter cumin, which has a sharper taste than other varieties that we may know, and is used both in a culinary form and in a traditional medicine form. And then what I think has come up most often when I connect with our Unite for Her members is what is known as black cumin or Nigella sativa. So this type of cumin is a flowering plant that is found throughout India, Arabia, and Europe. The seeds are commonly known as black seeds or black cumin, which if you're doing research about supplements or herbs and botanicals, this is typically how you would see that information shared. And again, they're used in both a culinary form or a traditional medicine form. And it is thought that this black cumin does have some pharmacological benefits. In fact, one of my favorite resources to share in terms of doing your own research about herbs and supplements is through the Memorial Sloan Kettering About Herbs. And so what they share about black cumin is that there are some studies that show black cumin may support varying chronic health conditions, including high blood pressure, asthma, diabetes, and rheumatoid arthritis. Of course, more research needs to be done, but the potential could be there. Now, there are some potential side effects depending on the form that you're using of this black cumin. So if you're using it as an oil, it could potentially cause an allergic reaction, and high doses of the Nigella sativa have caused liver and kidney issues in rats. So more human data needs to be looked at, but there is a potential. I always think safety is worth sharing as well. So from a nutritional standpoint and the spice, which is how we will be using today, let's talk about storage and usage. So in terms of storing, ground cumin loses its flavor more quickly than whole seed form. So if you have a seed grinder and you can keep it in the whole seed form and then grind it as you need it, you'll get that maximum flavor that we love. You want to make sure that you are storing them in a glass container, something, this is my spice container that I got from Trader Joe's, but most of them come in a glass container. So airtight in a glass container in a cool, dark place, and that way you'll maximize the integrity of the spice. And then ground cumin will keep in the spice cabinet for up to 6 months, and whole seeds will keep in the spice cabinet for up to 1 year. Now, in terms of how you can use it and enjoy it, cumin goes really well with foods like beans and legumes and rice and vegetables. We'll be using it on our fish. We'll be using it with our vegetables today in our soup. So we're really looking to those, the seafood area and the vegetables to use it and enjoy it, frankly. And then it can also be used as a substitute for salt. So for those of us that are concerned about our blood pressure, this is a really great seasonal substitution that can help keep our food flavorful. And then you can also have cumin tea. So you can boil whole seeds and steep them for 8 to 10 minutes in hot water, and then you can get all that delicious flavor and benefit as well. Nutritionally, cumin is a good source of fiber. It contains a little bit of protein as well, interestingly enough. And then it's also a good source of iron, manganese, magnesium, and calcium. So a couple other nutritional benefits. So there you have it, our food for thought moment, all about cumin. There's so much, and this is why I love sharing, especially about our herbs and spices, because they add so much more to our health than just good flavor. So with that being said, let me move my cumin aside, and we will get going with our sheet pans and soba noodles. So I will ask one more time, if anyone is cooking along, just give a little shout out in the chat. But otherwise, we'll get started with our first sheet pan dish. So this is great. Again, both of these are fantastic for weeknight dishes, or if you're cooking for just one, you want to have a little leftover for tomorrow. These are really great recipes that save your energy and save your time. So the first thing we'll be making is our garlic turmeric salmon with rainbow carrots, cauliflower, and lemon. So the first thing we need to know is let's prep our oven, right? Because we need that for our sheet pan dishes. My oven is preheated to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. I will be using 400 degrees for both recipes. So you can, that makes things easy. Let's prep our vegetables. So everything goes on my sheet pan. I have my spices, which I'll touch on in a minute. Lemon, which I will be adding at the end. And then we've got our veggies here. So let's prep these. I'm going to prep my cauliflower, and I have the rest of my rainbow carrots here. So you can see I've already cut some up, and they're a pretty good size, right? I want them to hold their shape. Yes, Robin, the recipes, Rachel will be attaching them in the chat, in the Zoom chat as we move along. I'll also be emailing them to everyone tomorrow. So they're also available for those that are watching live on our uniteforher.org/food for thought. You can get our recipes there as well. So let's finish prepping the rest of our carrots. And I will be showing you a really fun way that I like to cut my roasted vegetables when I roast them. So we're going to sort of cut our roasted veggies in an oblong cut. So this is, it makes things look a little fancy. I like that the surface area is conducive to some good roasting and some good little crispiness as it cooks. So what you're going to do is essentially we're going to be moving the carrot from side to side like this and cutting on an angle. So I have my carrot. We're going left to right. I'm going to take my knife and I'm just going to cut it sideways a little bit. Okay. So runaway carrot, I'll get to that later. If my dog is around, she'll be the cleanup crew. But you essentially, I cut it on the side, and then we're going to turn our knife and we're going to cut straight down. Turn our carrot straight down, turn it to the side. And so what I'm creating, I don't know if you could see this, is like a kind of like side cut. So again, you don't have to cut your carrots like this for roasting. It's just a different form. It's no better than just cutting them in discs if you want. But like I said, it presents a little nicer. And if you're practicing your knife skills, this is something fun to do. So we'll do that with the other purple carrot here. So sideways and then straight. Sideways, straight. Sideways, straight. We'll go all the way down. And I love these purple carrots because they have this beautiful yellow center. So talk about eating the rainbow. All right, so all of those will go on. And now we're just going to cut our cauliflower. I have half a head of cauliflower here, and we'll just cut it into florets, and then we're going to roast. We're using, you could certainly use your hands for this as well, or if anyone has any of their favorite tricks on how they like to do this quickly. I feel like that's one of the hacks that I often see on social media is how to quickly cut your broccoli and cauliflower. I will just break down some of these florets that are a little bit bigger so that they're a little more bite size and conducive to having on my fork. So we'll just cut these down. I love this recipe also because you can mix and match your veggies, right? So if you don't have carrots, maybe you are substituting with potatoes or another roasted root vegetable. We've gotten some turnips and we've gotten some radishes in our CSA box, right? So feel free to use another vegetable that is similar in texture. If you don't have cauliflower or if you don't like cauliflower, maybe you're trying broccoli instead. So really be creative with what you are putting on our baking sheet. So I have my cauliflower, all that will go on my baking sheet. Okay, great. And then let's season. I love this. I'm not even using a bowl because why dirty one more dish? All right, so we're gonna add a little bit of olive oil. You don't have to go too heavy-handed. We don't want to sop our vegetables. And then we'll add our spices. So here I'm using a little bit of red pepper flake. I have some salt. I have some turmeric, and I have my cumin. So I'm going to give these a little mix, and then I'll just be spreading this all over. Now, we know that when we're using turmeric, one way to increase the absorption of the active ingredient curcumin is by using a little bit of black pepper. So I am also making sure to grind some black pepper on this. Great. And then we'll use our hands and we'll get everything blended, and this will go in the oven. We will roast these for about 25 minutes. And then in the meantime, we'll season our fish, which we will, after that 25 minutes, we'll put right in the center of our baking sheet, and we'll finish this for another 10 to 12 minutes or so, depending on the thickness of our fish and how done we like it. So let me just wash my hands. I have a little bit of a cut on my hand, so that's why I'm wearing gloves for cleanliness. Okay. All right. All right, in the oven. So you want to make sure everything is evenly out. We don't want to crowd our baking sheet too much because we want to make sure that air is circulating. And then we'll come back in 25 minutes. So 400 degrees Fahrenheit, first in the oven we go. Great. Now, before we get to seasoning our fish, let's start our next sheet pan dish, which will be our soup. I love this. So again, essentially we're going to end up roasting all of our vegetables. And then at the end, we'll use our blender, adding a little bit of broth, a little bit of fresh lemon, some final seasonings, and we've got a beautiful dinner. So I'll talk about my spices in a moment. But again, all of our veggies we'll place on our pan. So the first thing I will prep is a whole head of garlic. So what I will end up doing, we're going to roast the whole head, and I am just going to cut off the very top. So with my knife, perfect. And so the tops of them are exposed. When I oil my veggies, I will make sure to drizzle a little bit on top, but this will go in the center of our baking sheet. And then I've got some other veggies that I also will prep. So what we'll be roasting, I have a small onion here. It is a Vidalia onion that I quartered. You could use any type of onion that you have on hand. So if you have a white onion, that would be great. Spanish onion, even some shallots roasted, I think would be a really great addition. So use what you have on hand. Again, let's cut our cauliflower up. And I'm not really too worried as much as I am with our other dish because we're going to end up pureeing all of this. So I'm using the whole cauliflower that will go on. I will say we will be doing our baking sheet will be a little crowded for this recipe, but that's okay because I have made this soup countless times that it doesn't really make a difference. I have some orange carrots here that I'm just cutting into 1-inch pieces or so. Oops. Man, all my carrots are all over the place. Okay, I've got some tomatoes here that I will have. So good. And this is going to create, as it cooks, really beautiful flavor in the bottom of the sheet pan. All of the juices. Do you recommend taking the skin off of the carrots? I did. Oh, so you don't have to. Great question. While I explain that, I'm going to prep my red bell pepper because I have 2 red bell peppers already prepped on here. So let's prep our last one. So for your carrots, you do not need to remove the skin. In fact, in an effort to reduce food waste, what you could use is a vegetable scrubber. I like to keep the skin on. Robin, go for it. Just use a vegetable scrubber and clean that outside really well. And then keep that skin on. Absolutely. Now, the other thing that you can do is save those skins if you want and put them in a freezer bag that you could use to infuse a vegetable stock. So I just cut the sides of my pepper. I'll give this, just pull out any of the seeds that may be left in it. And then we'll be placing these on our baking sheet skin side up. Okay, so let me show you what that looks like. I mean, talk about easy, right? So we'll just place these over here. Like I said, it will be a little crowded, but our food will shrink, space will open up. I really am not concerned. I have made this enough that I can confidently say it will definitely turn out delicious. So all of our veggies are on top. Everything is prepped. So let's also dress our vegetables here. I'm going to grab my olive oil. Little drizzle. Remember, I want to make sure my oil drizzles on the top of my clove. Add a little more here. Whoop. All right. And let me put a glove on again for my hands. Okay, let's talk seasonings. So again, we're using a little bit of cumin here. And I'll show you. So we're going to get a little bit of an undertone of heat with one of our spices. So I have some salt here. I have a little bit of cayenne. So if you are sensitive to heat, feel free to leave this out. It's 1/8 of a teaspoon for all of this. So it's not going to make a really spicy or hot or sort of burn your mouth, but everyone's palate is different. So if this is really something that you prefer to refrain from adding, feel free to do that because we've got plenty of other flavors going on. I have cumin and I have smoked paprika. So I will mix this up and then we're just going to start spreading this all over. And then again, I'm going to be cracking some fresh black pepper right on top. And we'll use our hands and we'll give this all a mix. We want to make sure everything is really well coated. And we'll roast this through most of class. So just kind of move our carrots around, our onions around. We've got our cauliflower, our peppers are kind of getting all jazzied up. I am going to move my tomatoes so that they are also skin side up. But again, if you're in a hurry, if you're like, kids have stuff to do, I'm running in, I'm coming home from work. This is a foolproof recipe, which is why I love it. And it freezes really well. So it makes a lot and it freezes well. Okay. So once everything, again, let's take our glove off, wash our hands into the oven. So like I said, this will roast through most of class. So we're just going to let this go to the very end, and it takes no time at all to puree. All right. Where's my tongs? I want to take my oven thermometer out safely. There we go. Set that back there. And then in we go. Okay. So 2 dinners are started. The hard part is done. While I get my fish and we sort of get that prepped to set aside, Rachel, do we have any questions about anything?
Nothing so far on Facebook, and I think you already answered Robin's question about the skin off or on with the carrots.
Great. Okay. Yeah, a good vegetable scrubber. I mean, for a lot of our root vegetables, like I said, radishes, turnips, parsnips, kohlrabi you want to peel, but you can really give that a good scrub, and then it's like an added fiber bonus. So definitely think about that. Okay. Let's prep our salmon. So we'll do a little bit of infusing of flavor, and I'll pop this back in the refrigerator until I'm ready to use it. So I've got my salmon fillet that I picked up from the grocery store. I'm keeping the skin on. It will come off really easily when we cook it, so don't worry about that. So the first thing that I'm going to do is spray it with a little bit of olive oil. And listen, for all the things I have thrown over, for anyone that's ever cooked with me knows this is my MO. And I feel like you're not cooking if you don't throw some stuff around. So I sprayed with a little bit of olive oil. And then, again, I'm going to go through a lot of gloves, but that's okay. I have 1 clove of garlic that you can either mince, or I'm going to be using a garlic press because I do want it to be sort of fine, so I can smooth it over my fish. So the first thing I'm going to do, 1 clove of garlic, and then we'll just use my spoon and kind of just move this all over the top of it.
All right, Robin was just asking if you can substitute avocado oil.
Oh gosh, yeah. Avocado oil is a great neutral oil. It's a high heat cooking oil. The fat profile in it is very heart healthy. So absolutely, if you prefer to use an avocado oil, oh my gosh, go for it. Love that. Okay, let's talk about our seasonings. Okay, so really simple. Again, we're sort of following suit of the veggies that we already have in our oven. So I have a little bit of salt here. I will add some pepper. I've got some ground ginger and then some turmeric. So I am just going to get these all blended up. And then we're just going to sprinkle them right on top. This is for 2 servings, so I'm actually not going to use the whole thing. We'll just get that patted on. Actually, I might use a little bit more. Now, like I said, I'm using salmon for this recipe, but I have made this. In fact, my first class, I made it with cod. Any sort of white flaky fish would be great. You would keep the same seasonings. So really use what you have, use what you prefer. We know that not everyone is a salmon fan, but any kind of fish would be great. I think you could even use this as a seasoning for chicken. So if you had a fish allergy, if you didn't like fish, but you wanted to use another form of lean protein, if you want to do it with chicken, or if you wanted to use these with some tofu and bake this off as well, you could do that also. All right. Finally, some freshly ground black pepper. Good. All right. So our fish is seasoned. I am going to stick this back in the fridge until I am ready to add this to my baking sheet in the oven. But I feel like we're letting it marinate just a little bit until we're ready for use. Okay. Any questions before I move on to our soba noodle dish? Okay, good. And hopefully this is inspiring for you, for those of us that are in a rainy area, to do a little bit of cooking. So I love this soba noodle dish. It is really quick to throw together. It is so flavorful. I love it. So, and it takes no time at all. So, and like I said, we're using frozen vegetables. So that is actually the first place that we're going to start. So I have some edamame here. I have some garlic, and you can use a medium or a large saute pan. I'm using a medium for today, but you want to make sure that you've got enough space in the bottom to heat up our veggies. So I'm just going to get this warm, medium high heat, and let's prep our vegetables. So like I said, we're using frozen vegetables. Now the recipe calls for, I'm going to run to my freezer. The recipe calls for frozen broccoli and frozen edamame. Not every grocery store has edamame. Oh, Robin, you are so funny. Oh my gosh, ask away. We know we love your questions. So I have some frozen broccoli here. It's about a cup. I love this. And then edamame can be a little bit more difficult to find in a grocery store. So if you don't have frozen, one of the other ways that you could substitute is using a pre-cooked, vacuum-packed form of edamame. I know Trader Joe's has that available. So I saved the packaging. This is typically how I find it's in the produce section. And that's what I'm going to use for today. I will add these a little later in because I'll let my broccoli get warm first, but no big deal. And then also, just a little bit of oil, if you didn't have edamame or didn't want to use it, I've also made this dish with frozen peas. which are also really delicious. So feel free to use those as well. And again, like take them right out of the freezer and throw in your pan. Easy peasy. So my edamame, I'm going to set aside for just a little bit. My pan is warm. My oil's hot.
Another
Our frozen,
question.
yeah,
Sorry.
no,
Is
that's
there a
okay.
substitute for soba noodles that's gluten-free if you can't have gluten?
So you could try any, you know what, I think the most difficult thing is the final texture of it. So you could try like a rice noodle if you wanted to try that, a wider rice noodle, which would be gluten-free. You could play around with some of the other pastas or noodles that are made from things like lentils or chickpeas. But I think the biggest difference will be how does it hold up in the dish? And soba noodles hold up really, really well. So I would do a little bit of experimentation, but I think perhaps starting with maybe a rice noodle, like a wider rice noodle. That's a great question. All right, so medium high heat or so. I'm going to let my broccoli defrost. The water that typically comes off of it will get absorbed, and then it'll start to heat through. Let's also prep a little bit of garlic that we have here. So let me grab my other knife. I have 3 cloves of garlic here because I like garlic. And I'm just going to give this a fine dice. You could also use your microplane again for like a really fine, if you didn't want to do this by hand, that would be great. But I'll just cut this down. And then my garlic will go in with my broccoli as well. And then the flavors will just infuse. So good. It's like amazing how simple this recipe is and then how quickly it comes together. So this is step 1. All right. A little bit of garlic. Okay, that goes in. And I'll periodically go back to that and just kind of move it around a little bit. If you feel like your pan is getting a little too hot, turn it down. We certainly don't want our garlic to burn. And then just flip. Oh, it smells so good already. There's something about garlic and oil that is just like to die for. Okay. Move those around. Okay. So while that's getting warm, let's make our salad dressing. All right, here's my ingredients. You'll need a whisk. We've got a medium-sized bowl. We have our individual ingredients. So this definitely has Asian influence behind it. Lots of fresh ingredients, really, really good. All right, so in my medium bowl, the first thing I have is some sesame oil. I have toasted sesame oil, 2 tablespoons. To that, I'm adding 1 tablespoon of rice vinegar. I have a 1/4 cup of creamy peanut butter. You can absolutely, so this one is a sweetened peanut butter. You can use a natural as well. Absolutely feel free to do that. For this, I find that the little bit of sweetness balances sort of the salty, earthy flavors that we're getting from this. So I really like how it contributes to the overall dish, but use what you have. A little bit of peanut butter. Let's grate some fresh ginger root. Nothing like fresh ginger. So I've got a piece right here. I'm using my microplane, one of my favorite kitchen tools, and we'll grate this right in here. And it's just, again, the punchiness of the ginger root is just so good. Now, this can be hard to do if you have neuropathy or if you're dealing with some weakness in your hands or arms. So you can, in some of the freezer sections, they'll make ground ginger in frozen section in little cubes. So defrost 1 or 2 of those, they would be great. There are tubes of ginger paste that you could use as well. That would be a fine substitution. So lots of ways to work through this recipe depending on what you're dealing with. Is sweetened peanut butter good for you? Good for you in what sense? I mean, peanut butter is a good source of healthy fat and some protein. So I may have missed a latter part of that question. So and feel free to come off of mute for that, Marta. And then finally, I'm adding some soy sauce. Feel free to substitute this with either coconut aminos or tamari. Both would be a fabulous substitution.
Erin, sorry to interrupt.
No worries.
What I mean is I love peanut butter. Not the natural kind,
Me too.
Skippy and stuff like that. And a lot of times it's kind of my go-to snack, like a peanut butter sandwich or stuff like that.
Okay.
So is it okay, or is it like bad? You know what I'm saying? Because it has sugar and all that stuff, or?
Yeah, great question. I love this question. So, one of the things that we're always trying to think about is how we can really overall, like as a society, reduce our intake of added sugars, right? And that is found in a lot of our processed goods. So in one of the places that we find added sweeteners and sugars, and while I talk, I'm just going to be whisking this up. So I'm going to work as I talk. So, some of our nut and seed butters is a place that we could start. So when you're working with something that's a natural nut butter or a seed butter, right, the ingredients are simpler. There's not a lot of additives to it. So if you are, and you meaning anyone, if you're someone that is trying to evaluate how you can reduce your overall added sugar intake, I would say, start with maybe some of the foods that you consume often, which could be peanut butter. But also you have to think about, do you like natural peanut butter, right? And is that an area that you want to lessen your added sugar intake? Or perhaps there's other areas that you can make better quality food choices, right? So we're not striving for perfection. So it's not that we can't ever enjoy something that has an added sugar or sweetener, but overall we want to look at how can we reduce our intake overall. So you kind of have to find what works for you and what your individual goals are. But I've certainly talked to plenty of members that are like, maybe they've reduced their intake of added sugar in other areas, maybe via sweetened beverages or going with a simpler creamer for their coffee or tea. But there's got to be a give and take. It's like, well, listen, I don't like the natural peanut butter. I'm sticking with the sweetened kind, but I have it with apples. I have it with other healthy choices. And there are other areas in our food life that we've made improvements. So it's a really individual sort of question. But I think when we think about, is it good? It's the added sugar that tends to come up, and it could potentially be an area for improvement.
Thanks, Erin. Unfortunately, I don't like natural peanut butter.
Yeah.
I try to reduce in other things, but it's not bad to have like that. So peanuts themselves, because that's another go-to snack, just like salty peanuts, because I don't like unsalted. The ones in the store that have salt and other things. Are peanuts fine?
Yeah. Peanuts are a legume. We actually just posted, and Rachel, maybe you can share a link to our social media. Definitely check that out. We just posted a food for thought moment of all the nutritional benefits of peanuts. I'm just sharing, it's a nice creamy sauce, so I'm going to set this aside. And I'm going to add my edamame. So the only thing, again, that really comes to mind is, when we're looking at salted peanuts, because especially if it's someone that is trying to be mindful of their blood pressure, or maybe they're dealing with a little bit of edema or fluid retention, certainly salt in the diet is something that we want to be mindful of. So if you are eating a lot of salted peanuts or salted nuts, I would definitely recommend perhaps choosing one that has less salt at the very least, if not unsalted altogether. But, you bring up a really interesting point, Marta, because, and my broccoli is browning really beautifully. I'm almost done here. I'll show you what this looks like. I'll let this go for a little bit longer. Our palate gets used to two flavor profiles, sugar and sweet. So whenever we're trying to move away from that, it can be difficult, and food doesn't taste good. So, we want to think about, okay, giving yourself a little bit of time to adjust to the change in taste, right? Things are not going to taste as salty. They may not taste as sweet. But typically with time, you can get used to it. Your palate adjusts to having a lesser degree of saltiness or sweet. So I would say hang in there. You know, maybe you're stepstoning to a less added salt in your peanuts or your nuts that you may be munching on. So that would be probably the biggest concern that comes to mind from a health perspective.
Thanks a lot.
Love it. Love those questions. Okay, I just turned my fan on because it was getting a little warm in here. But let me show you what my veggies look like. They are fantastic. All right. So you can see the little bit of charring, right? Really beautiful. I threw my edamame in. We're heated all the way through. Looks great. So we're going to add this to our dish. So let's finish up our soba noodles. How are we doing on time? Let me check my veggies over here. My soup vegetables, I'm going to keep in there. Well, like I said, we'll pull them out at the very end. But let's move around our fish vegetables a little bit. And we'll take a peek at where we are. Ooh, they look good. All right. So far, so good. All right. Just going to move these around. And they do look good. The carrots are feeling soft. Okay, you know what? I can put my fish in. Let me grab that. And then we'll finish our first sheet pan dish. Really easy. Love this. Now, fish cooks really quick, right? Depending on how thick of a fillet. So, you know, I like my salmon a little bit more well done. So I'll probably lean on the 11 or 12 minute side. If you have a thinner fillet, it'll cook quicker. Certainly, if you are using something like a chicken breast, you want to make sure that you are cooking to the 165 internal temperature. You want to pay attention to that. So I'm going to take my fish, set it right in the center. Where am I saying? Give my hands a wash. Okay. This looks great. So we'll finish our dish. Love this. Love a one pan. Right back in the oven. All right. All right. Let's finish our soba noodles. I love these. So soba noodles are made from buckwheat, which is a form of grain that is a great source of fiber, great source of minerals, some plant protein as well. So I have found in my grocery store that they make soba noodles that are vacuum packed. Let me show you. Or you could buy them in a box, you know, like a dry form, and then you can just cook them in the package instructions. So this is a brand that I found in my local grocery store. And they come totally unseasoned. There's no added salt or anything, but they're vacuum packed, 2-pack. So how I like to use these, you're going to use a microwave safe bowl. I have my noodles out of the plastic, and I'm adding just a tablespoon or 2 of water to the bottom. And I'm going to lightly dampen a paper towel. Essentially, we're going to steam this for 90 seconds in the microwave, and they will heat our noodles through. And then they'll be ready to go. Easy peasy. But again, if you can't find them or don't have them available in your grocery store where you do your shopping, just cook your noodles through the package instructions. They are so quick to throw together. We're talking 4 to 5 minutes. So again, really conducive to these quick meals. Okay, now let's get our veggies. I am using a clear bowl so you can see what this looks like. I have some of the most beautiful spinach greens from our Lancaster Farm Fresh CSA that I am participating in. So if you're in our local passport program, please consider checking out that offering. It's delicious. So like these are really beautiful spinach leaves. So I'll be giving them a rough chop. I also have some scallions here, which I'll be using as well. So let's prep. So for my scallions, I am using the entire thing, the green and the white parts. The only thing I will be doing is cutting off these little root ends here, and I'll be thinly slicing them. Scallions are great if you do not like a strong onion flavor. These are mild. They give us like all of that onion flavor that we love without being too overpowering. They can be great for a garnish. I love that we're using it in a dish that will be sort of a mix of warm and cold. Those are my noodles. Yeah, so good. Okay. So we'll set those aside. And then again, my spinach, I'll just be doing a rough chop of these leaves because they're a little bit bigger. And some of the ends I will take off. If they have, if I have some that have a little bit of a larger end, I'll take them off. But just so they're in pieces. If you don't have spinach available, perhaps there's another green that you want to use. I think a Tuscan kale, lacinato kale would be great. That has a little bit more of a delicate leaf to it. That also has been in our CSA fairly recently. But feel free to be creative with your greens. It's so good. All right, so I'm just going to lay these one on top. We'll kind of do a roll. So we're going to follow a little bit of a chiffonade kind of. We'll just very loosely cut these into our bowl. Okay. I love this. Spinach is really, really nutrient dense. So, one of the things that we talk about for bone health is, of course, calcium. So you get some calcium from our dark leafy greens. But I also like to call out vitamin C, which is a supporter of absorbing both iron and calcium. And what a lot of people may not know is our leafy greens are also great sources of vitamin C, as well as those other red blood cell and bone building nutrients. I think that's Mother Nature's way of giving us what we need. Beautiful, right? Our scallions will go in. So really nutrient dense. I love that. Okay. So everything is in our bowl, my green onions and my spinach. Let's grab our noodles. They are heated. I like to just use, they are slightly hot. Okay. Use a little fork just to loosen them up a little bit. All right, they should come apart nicely. Yeah, so good. Nice and steamy. And these will go also right on in. If there's a little bit of water left in the bottom of your bowl as you're steaming, no worries. Great. And then we'll get these just sort of mixed around. So good. Kind of starts to wilt our greens a little bit. All right. Our veggies will go in. All right, so good. And then we're adding our dressing. So I typically do not use all of this dressing. It is a lot. So I start with a little and give a mix. If you like to be a little more heavy-handed, that's okay. But I think it's always easier to add than take away. All right. So we give this a nice little mix. We'll get this plated. And just, I try to make sure I break up my noodles so they're kind of dispersed well through our dish. And then if you have sesame seeds, you can top this with a little bit of sesame seeds for some crunch, but not mandatory. Let's get this plated. So really simple. All right. Like I said, a great way to utilize your frozen veggies in a different way. All right. Some of our other veggies over here. Oh, so good. Okay. Let me just clean up my bowl a little bit and I'll show you. That looks like. So good. Right? So we see our greens, it's a little warm. You're going to get really beautiful crunch and the texture from the little bit of your browned broccoli and edamame. Great source of protein, great source of fiber, really, really nutrient dense dish. So I'll give this a little taste. I love this. And some broccoli. Oh my gosh, I love it. So good. So good. Serve this warm. So if you can wait to assemble this to when you're just about ready to serve, that's when it'll be its best, in my opinion. So it's really good because you can kind of keep your ingredients all separate. And then when you're ready to have dinner or you're ready to assemble for maybe a really great nutrient-dense lunch, you can just throw everything together. But this is to die for. Okay. How are we doing on time? I've got a couple more minutes on my fish. Let's check our soup.
One question from
Veggies.
Jennifer. Do you think this dish would reheat well or no?
I think it may reheat well once. You know, I think looking at the these look really good. Looking at, yeah, because of the greens, that may be a little bit tough. So I think you could reheat it or just sort of warm it through a little bit once. Well, these look really great. All right, I'm going to let these go for just a couple more minutes. My peppers are all really soft. My carrots, I want to make sure that they're nice and tender. So I'll let these go for a few more minutes.
Sorry, this is just a personal question related to Jennifer.
Go ahead, Rachel. Yeah.
But if you made like the soba noodles like in bulk and then you just like made the veggies could you just like do that as like a meal prep way for like the week?
I love that, Rachel. Absolutely. Because what you could do, so this dressing, right? So you can keep this dressing stored in an airtight container in your refrigerator for 3 to 5 days. You can make a big batch of your vegetables. Maybe you're individually portioning them out, and then you're prepping your fresh at 100% yes. And then you just sort of assemble. You can reheat some of your veggies, and so you get that warm and cold sort of mix. Bring your salad dressing to room temperature, give it a little extra mix with a fork. And this would be a wonderful meal prep option. I love that suggestion.
Love that.
Love it. Love it. Okay. So let's grab our fish. Oh, it looks perfect. Perfect, perfect. So let's see where we are. And then we'll get this plated as well. Are we flaking? We are flaking. I actually like it done a little bit more. So I'm going to pop this back in the oven. So again, I'm just sort of looking for me to that thickest part of the fillet here. I like mine a little bit more well done. All right, so while that finishes, let's make our soup. We can do this. All right, so I'm going to set these down for a moment. What will you need? A blender. So I'm using my high-powered blender because it makes a really creamy and smooth texture of my soup. If you don't have this, you could use a Ninja, something smaller that has a smaller capacity. You may just have to do in, just sort of separate or divide it out into smaller portions. You could also add all of those vegetables to a larger pot, add your broth, add some lemon, and then use an immersion blender if you wanted as well. So there's a few ways to sort of work around this. All right, so essentially all of my vegetables, as much as I can fit in, will go in here. Here I have some warmed broth. So a little while ago, I made some homemade chicken stock that I've been keeping in my freezer. It was a really simple recipe, but I wanted to make it from scratch. So that's what I'm using for this. You could use a vegetable stock. You could use whatever you have on hand. So don't let that be a limiting factor. All right, so again, I'm seeing lots of great juice in the bottom, so I'm going to use this. All my veggies, aside from my garlic. I'll show you what to do with the garlic. But all my tomatoes look so good. Cauliflower, oh, my onions. So much good flavor to this. All right. If you don't have all red peppers, use whatever kind of bell peppers you have. So I've made this with like orange and yellow, one of each, throw in a green, use the little baby peppers that you have. So you can be creative. Oh, this looks great. All right. Let's see how much we can squeeze in here without overdoing it. I'm just going to add these last two. Okay. Show you what to do with my garlic. I'm going to set these aside. Okay. Now, roasted garlic should become really soft. So I'm just going to use my hands to squeeze out some of the cloves. And roasting, ooh, that's hot. Hot, 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 hot. You don't need all of them. There we go. Got about 4 cloves in there. It kind of softens that garlicky flavor and really helps it to develop. So that's good. All right. I'm adding the juice of a lemon. So I've got my whole lemon here as well.
It's from.
And then we're adding our broth. The recipe calls for 2.5 cups.
Yeah.
Eyeball it. If you want a soup that's a little bit creamier, you can add less. If you feel like you need a little bit more, that's fine as well. The addition of lemon to this recipe helps to brighten everything. One thing I am also going to be mindful of is the salt for flavor development. So my chicken stock I made has no salt in it. So I'll be tasting this as I puree. See if I can actually just pour this in. And then we'll see what we need to add at the end. We'll start there. Great. Okay. So my lid will go on. And then we'll blend until it's nice and smooth. Be mindful of pureeing with hot ingredients, especially if you're using a Ninja, it can seal the top of it. Mine has a little removable lid, so I just sort of lift it a little bit to let some of the steam out, but please be careful when you're working with hot ingredients. All right. Beautiful. Let's take a look. I'm going to give a taste, and I may need to add a little bit of salt, pepper to this, and then we'll give it one final blend. Wow, does that smell good already? Oh my gosh, look at this color. Oh, it's like this beautiful red orange. Wow. Oh yeah. All right, a little bit of black pepper, a little bit of salt. I'll give one final mix. I will likely be enjoying this with a grilled cheese later. I'm just saying, it's a soup and a sandwich kind of day here on this rainy East Coast day. So this is like the perfect thing. All right. So one final mix. We'll get this in a bowl. We'll grab our fish and we'll be off and running. All right. So good. Okay. Oh, I'm losing my Band-Aid. That's it, right? Okay. Now the texture of this, I missed that question. Rachel, if you want to pass that along.
Oh, sorry. I was on the Facebook one. Do you use kosher or regular table salt?
I use kosher. It is it's a kosher sea salt. You could use any kind of salt that you want. I forget. I think it's the Diamond brand that I know a lot of people that cook prefer to use. But yeah, I use a fine kosher salt is what I prefer. All right, let's clean the side a little bit. And this is just really delicious. So look at this color. Gorgeous, perfectly smooth. And I'll show you the texture of this. So it is a little bit, right? We've got a nice creamy sort of perfect sandwich texture. If you wanted this a little bit thinner, add some more broth to it, right? Or use a little bit less if you want something that's really thick. So good. Yummy. Okay. And then our fish should be done. Full of so much goodness. Robin, right? And so easy. Like, think about all the vegetables we packed into this soup. It is a red pepper forward, like that roasted red pepper flavor. But we've got tomatoes, we've got onions, we've got cauliflower, we've got carrots, we've got spices. I mean, there's so much nutrition that is packed into that little bowl. Talk about a great way to get in more vegetables.
One other
Perfect.
question was, is iodine and regular salt bad for you?
No, great question. So as I plate this, let's talk about iodine and salt and why that started. So decades ago, food manufacturers, it was actually a health crisis because young children were not consuming enough iodine from natural food. Iodine is typically found in foods that are grown in the earth. But in some parts of the world, iodine was not being consumed, and the resulting effect is a goiter. So what you would typically see is that large goiter at the base of their neck is a result of iron deficiency. So decades ago, as a result of this nutrient crisis, essentially, they started infusing iodine in salt because that was something that everyone used. So it was a really fantastic way to help a worldwide nutrient deficiency. Currently, like present day, we don't have that risk, at least in the United States, with not getting enough iodine typically because of a lot of different reasons, right? Nutrients are fortified in things like breakfast cereals for children. If people are using formula to feed their children versus breastfeeding, that may have some iodine as well. So we're getting it fortified in certain foods, so that risk has really decreased. But in general, iodine infused salt is not a bad thing. It actually was really helpful at its origin, is what I should say. So I love that question. All right, let's plate. Our fish is perfect. So you can see this does come right off the skin. So I have my salmon fillet. I see all of these really beautiful spices that are sort of crusted on top, really flavorful. I love the visual because I have some purple carrots here, orange, yellow. So the turmeric adds some really lovely yellow as well. I'm just gonna use my hands because that's what I was given. Okay. Oh my gosh, so good. All right. So now we have like a really colorful dinner that came together in no time at all. Look at that, gorgeous. So if you enjoyed this with a little side of our soba noodles, or maybe you wanted to have some soup as an appetizer, it would be wonderful. So let's make sure, oh yeah, now we're perfectly flaking, Yep. Yeah, so good. So that is our salmon with these beautiful vegetables. So good. Soup and soba noodles. So this is my sheet pan and soba noodles cooking class and my recipes. Any questions about any of the ingredients, the cooking methods, substitutions, even meal prep suggestions? Rachel, thank you for that. But any questions before we wrap up class? Oh, you're so welcome, Marta. Great questions. Love it. Robin, great questions. Love that. Any through Facebook, Rachel, or are we looking pretty good?
Nothing on Facebook.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. Well, hopefully, like I said, this will be inspiration. Simple dinner, Peggy, right? Like, we're busy. We've got a lot going on. I feel like the year is just moving at such a pace that this gives us time to whip things together that are nourishing, that are simple, that are flavorful, that use seasonal ingredients, but also utilizes some of those really great convenience foods like what we find in our freezer. So Like I said, hopefully this is inspiration for you to try these on your own. Be creative with what you have, with what you like. They are practically foolproof. Salt changes the flavor. So the iodine in salt, because it's an added mineral, there will be a slight flavor change compared to other salts that are not fortified with iodine. But that goes with all the different types of salts that are out there, right? So when you're looking at like a pink salt or a black salt, there are other minerals that are naturally occurring when they are gathering their salt that contributes to overall flavor. So it's really no different than, when we're playing with different types of salts that are out there. But iodine fortified salt versus non will have a slightly different flavor. So for some people, that's also why they might not prefer to use it, because they just don't like the flavor of it. So yeah, but it doesn't mean it's bad. I love this. So thank you so much for being here with me on this Saturday morning. Please make these recipes. Please enjoy them. And also let us know what you thought of them. If you swapped out the ingredients, what you used in your kitchen, definitely take food photos and share with us on social media. Tag Unite for her, because we love to see what you're whipping up in your kitchen. Also, as you're being creative, you are inspiration to other members as well on how they can make these dishes unique in their home also. So thank you so much for joining me for our cooking class. Be on the lookout for those recipes for those in our Zoom today that are coming to your email inbox tomorrow. Hopefully we'll see you in a future class. Definitely check out Aubrey's cooking classes in April as well. She is making fermented foods. I can't wait to taste her kimchi, but definitely check those classes out as well. Thank you so, so much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and hopefully we will see you again soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Erin.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, everyone.